Do you find yourself constantly wondering, why didn't they text me? What's going on? I thought we had a great date, but they didn't text me good morning. I'm so hypervigilant. I can't sit still. I can't eat. I can't sleep. That's not necessarily a normal part of dating. And Jessica and I today are going to share with you guys what to do about this dysregulation, this constant anxiety and second guessing yourself, questioning what's going on. Because when you're dating, yes, it's anxiety inducing, but that should not be what runs the show. So Jessica, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this just such anxiety with the texting, or I haven't heard from this person, especially after like 1 or 2 dates?
Yeah, it can be so challenging, can't it? The way we can understand it is by looking at what's happening in our brain and body, and that ties into more immobilization of our nervous system. So we'll feel this urgency, and that in itself is a beautiful protective mechanism that we have, but it can cause us so much distress. So when we move into this state of mobilization, the part of the vagus nerve that normally keeps us in check or helps us cope with and recover from stress, it will release its brake, or its ability to keep us slow down, running at a nice regulated pace. And what will happen then is we get this mobilizing energy come in. So there's cortisol, there's adrenaline, and we'll feel it, right? It's like, I've got to take action. And as that mobilization comes into our body, we might not start to notice, oh, my leg's shaking. Oh, I can't sit still. Oh, I've got to reach for my phone. Have they texted? And that needing somebody outside to give us that sense of safety, like that story starts to evolve as well, of like, well, why haven't they texted me back? I just need that text to know that I'm okay. And so it makes so much sense through a nervous system lens, but it can be extremely painful, and we can feel really caught up in that as well.
Oh, I used to think I was insane. I used to think I was going mad, because I remember if somebody texted me in the morning, like even I would wake up in the middle of the night multiple times just to check to see if I had a text, just to see, because to your point, it had very little to do with them, right? Like I didn't know these people. We had maybe gone on 1 or 2 dates, if that. Maybe they weren't even somebody I'd met yet. But because I was so scared of, but are they going to leave me? Are they going to abandon me? Are they going to forget about me? Are they not going to choose me? Do they not like me? So I was so hyper fixated on the texting. And I think we see so much content now out there of like, I see one more of them. If a man doesn't text you every day, then he means he doesn't like you. If a guy texts you good morning, that means they're into you. And it's like, spoiler alert, you can automate that. You could literally set a timer to send out text messages to as many people. And I had a client who was sleeping next to a guy who was texting a woman good morning while she was next to him, because he was some people know what they need to do. And I've always found my mood to be dictated. My day was not okay. But if I heard from them, everything was fine, because I was filling in the blanks. There was a lot of space, right? I didn't have clarity. How could you? You had 1 or 2 dates with these people. And when they would text, it was also this dopamine loop, right? My brain was anticipating. And what happens when you're anticipating and you're on this dopamine loop, you need more. You need more. You always need more in order to keep yourself from feeling the feelings. And so I'm curious, for anybody that's finding themselves on these loops, what do you suggest when somebody is like, just, I can't sit still, or I need them to text me, or why haven't they text me, right? I can see the narrative. I can see the rabbit hole we go down. What are some steps so that we can actually start to take control of our lives and not be so beholden to our stupid phones?
It's such a good question. I think it starts from the date, right? Because in that moment, if there is that release of dopamine, we are getting this pleasure center light up and the excitement of it. And then what our brains can start to do is the grasping. I want more. I want more. I want more. It's no different than food, right? And so if we start to notice that, it's important in that moment for us to be able to straight away start to go, okay, I'm recognizing that there's some grasping going on. And I think it's almost like if we go home and be alone and, sit waiting, we're already setting ourselves up to fail. So I think having something that is going to keep us busy, like connecting with other friends, it could be going on a date with somebody else. If it's that early on, can be just so useful. But then as it comes along and we're like, they should have texted by now, why haven't they? And I mean, that's human nature to be curious if someone is going to reach out, and we can be excited. But that excitement can turn to anxiety, right? And it's a fine line. So if we start to notice the urgency and the mobilization there, it is most likely a flight energy, but it could also be the fight or the anger. So I think it's helpful to see the difference in the two. So if it's the flight energy, now think about this like a rabbit who's scared of a predator. We're literally scared of losing something. Like, I'm not going to be safe if they don't choose me. That's how much the lower centers in our brain are believing that. So really our antidote is to feel very deeply this sense of trust. We're not looking to try and calm ourselves down to be like, okay, I shouldn't feel like this. It's more like, what would help me in a really embodied way feel trust? For people, that could be connection with a friend straight away, like co-regulation. But for other people, it's really about tuning into the body and actually connecting with, okay, so maybe it's hard for me to feel like, the trust, but can I feel a place in my body that feels neutral at least? So if you were to tune into like sensations in the hands or the feet or the connection of your body to your environment, and then you can actually start to work with, once you get grounded enough, well, what's really here? What is actually arising? So here's the mobilization. Now, as we tune into the sensations, they will start to change and move, but we can also hold that ourselves through touch. We can use the thoughts, even speaking into these places of, I'm with you, you're safe, I've got you. So there's this way of like attuning to ourselves that people who are anxious, particularly in that flight energy, will really find, okay. Now, it doesn't mean that we'll come right back down. Like, it still can go up and down, but it can be enough just to keep us from, really redlining up into where we've got so much energy. And then for fight, this can be super helpful to actually let our body move. If we're like, they're not texting me back, they're so selfish, they're so whatever. Like, if we see that blame and anger directed at that other person, make a U-turn, come back in and start to go, well, how does my body want to express this anger? And sometimes it becomes pretty apparent that I'm actually playing out like, what I wished I had from a parent, or what I'm putting onto somebody else. But in our body, if we feel the tension in our jaw, like, let yourself clench your jaw, let your shoulders get tight, let your hands come into a fist, let it move, and then notice what happens. And you might do that 3, 4, 5 times, but the actual expression of that fight energy can let it move. But the problem I think we make is we go from, this is going on and I want to get rid of it. But a lot of it is, this is what's going on in my body. I need to actually experience it, express it, then I can expel it. So those 3 E's can be really helpful to go experience it, express it, then expel it, rather than just jumping straight to the expel.
Especially when we don't have facts to back it up, right? Like,
Yes.
I see this every day of like, well, it takes 10 seconds to send a text. And it's like, well, first of all, that's really entitled. And like, that sounds incredibly, I'm sorry, who are you, right? Like, I don't owe that to you. I don't think anybody, unless I'm in a relationship with you, that's a different conversation if we're communicating. But if I've had one date, or maybe I haven't even had a date with you yet, and I'm expecting that you're going to text me every day, or that when I text you, you automatically need to have your phone in your hand in order to respond to me, then what ends up happening is like, that feels very child-parent dynamic, right?
Yes.
You're no longer in a connection, because a true connection is, I trust this. I trust that what we had, we both felt that. And if it's so simple as, you didn't text me for a date, that means you don't care about me and you forgot about me. I don't know necessarily that I'd want to date you, because if you're that flighty, right? Of, oh, yeah, out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yes.
Just didn't even think about you. And maybe we can also interject like some other thought processes, right? Of, okay, if I don't have facts to back up that they didn't text me, which means they don't like me, maybe I can also interject, oh, I'm creating a narrative here, right? I'm creating a narrative because that's how I feel, right? I feel like, well, because I hear that all the time too, well, I would text somebody every day. I would text back immediately, but that doesn't mean that everybody else has that same relationship. And I feel like phones have created, they're like this little dysregulation machine, right? They've created this, almost entitlement of, well, I should, because you have a piece of technology, you should be giving me access. When, sure, I would love that person to respond in a timely manner, but we don't have information to know they took 3 hours to respond. Thus, that means this, because it's the same with the social media component. I could go on social because I just want to be mindless. I want to be brainless. I'll send my friends a meme. And there's a meme that said, like, raise your hand if you've had to send the text just so you could send them a meme in private, like without having to worry. And I felt that because I'm like, I have 15 text messages even right now on my phone, but I might go onto social immediately and send my friend memes and get to their text later.
Yes.
The memes are mindless and I don't have to think about anything. The bandwidth required to engage in a conversation, because here's the reality, it's never one text.
Right.
It's never just, hey, how you doing? Hope you have a great day. Talk to you later. Because then I hear, well, they only text me once. They must not like me. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the text. It's what it signifies. And if that signifies safety, you're never going to really feel safe then if it's always onto them.
Yes, exactly. And then there's never that healthy dynamic because you're completely dependent on what's outside of you, which is really, in essence, the state we can see with fawn. You know, we're leaning in, merging with somebody, looking outside of us to feel safe. But what we might not notice, but what's going on inside of us is, you know, there could be butterflies in our tummy. That's actually the blood flow leaving our digestive system because we're moving into that flight state. There can be nausea. There can be this feeling of I'm really ungrounded, lightheaded. So lots of things to pay attention to, but also I'd be mindful of the cues that we're taking in as we look at our phone. So if we're following a whole heap of dating advice that says things like, if they really loved you, they would have texted you back, our nervous system picks that up as a threat because it's like, oh, there must be something wrong. So I think it's also being able to let some of that slide if it's not helpful. And even friendships, like if we're going to friends for advice who might tend to give advice that's not super helpful around dating, we can find ourselves escalated. And, you know, if it is that I'm so worked up, they should have texted me by now, it can come out as anger and we say something we regret, which, you know, ruins that relationship before it even got a chance to take off.
Especially, oh God, I've done that before where I text a guy. I remember it being like saying like, did you like, hey, thinking of you, or like, did you want to do something? 20, 30 minutes. I couldn't sit with it. I couldn't just sit with my own discomfort, literally sit in the discomfort. And I would text them back and go, okay, guess not. Oh yeah, no shit. Your girl was bad in her heyday. And literally, and then maybe an hour later, they'd be like, hey, I was actually super excited to see you again, but I don't know that that's necessarily a good idea. And I'd be like, what? But so quickly, and it's like, no, they were right. They were right because the behavior I exhibited was a much larger issue than just, oh, she got a little anxious and texted me. They were not wrong. And it wasn't, nobody shamed me. Nobody blamed me for it, but they were correct. It wasn't about that. It wasn't just the text. There was a much deeper root. And they knew that if they had continued, that string would have unraveled. And I think it behooves us, was my favorite word my high school teacher taught us. It behooves us to think, oh, it's just the texting. I'll be fine when I get that, because trust me, there will be something else. There will be something else. There will be something else, because your nervous system is cueing that you're not safe. Not that text signifies that much, because what is good morning? Hope you have a good day. How's that building a relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of this is about the slowing down before we respond, which is really hard. And it might actually mean that we need to go and do some movement or get to a place where we can get rid of some of that, especially flight energy, get rid of some of that mobilization, then allow ourselves just to pause, like slow it down a bit. Okay, now if I'm a bit slower, and even just wait before texting, in time, you know, that can be where we come into big picture again, because the part of our brain that's big picture, frontal cortex, frontal lobe, and is related to empathy and connection, it's going to be offline the more wound up we are. So if we can just let it slow down a bit, so that might literally mean letting some energy out and then starting to move slower, slow it down. And your brain and your heart rate will slow down to match. And that in time will start to change the story that you're experiencing or living as well.
You're not beholden to this. You guys can heal through it. Your anxiety with texting and dating doesn't have to define you. Just try to remember, listen to some of what Jessica said, tap into your body, tap into some tools, and give yourself grace. I found out when you show compassion, you actually release dopamine. So show yourself a little bit of compassion, and remember, you don't know who these people are, and you will get if you don't get an answer and they ghost you, that's an answer. But just remember, it doesn't have to do anything about you, and it says everything about them if that is how they choose to handle this.
Exactly.